I knew something was terribly wrong the moment I stepped into the dark hallway and heard my wife whisper my name, too weak to stand. The front door clicked shut behind me at 2:17 a.m., that cold hour when the world feels deserted. My suitcase wheels scraped across the hardwood like a warning I was too tired to interpret. I'd landed back early, Arizona flights canceled due to a storm, and all I wanted was to slip into bed next to Laura and tell her I was home. But the house wasn't asleep. It was abandoned. A dim lamp flickered in the living room, the bulb struggling like a dying heartbeat. The air smelled of alcohol and cigarettes, not ours, not the life we'd built. "Henry," her voice trembled from the couch. "Honey, water, please." I dropped the suitcase so fast it toppled. Laura lay half collapsed on her side, hair glued to her forehead with sweat. Her knee, still swollen from surgery, rested awkwardly on a pillow. Blankets twisted around her like restraints. The cold compress had melted hours ago, a damp patch soaking into the couch cushion. Empty glasses sat untouched on the table, as if someone kept bringing her glassware instead of the one thing she asked for. I knelt beside her. "My wife, what happened? Why didn't someone help you?" She swallowed, lips cracked and pale. I tried to call them. They wouldn't come downstairs." The music hit me next, a low, vibrating bass shaking the ceiling. Laughter, shouting, someone singing into a microphone. The party above us rattled picture frames on the walls. My pulse stuttered. "Michael?" I asked, though dread already filled the answer. Her eyes fluttered. "They said I was overreacting, wanted attention." A tiny whimper escaped her throat, humiliated even as she was begging for water. I stood and went to the kitchen. Cabinets slammed harder than I meant. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped a glass, not from anger, not yet, but from something colder, the realization that my wife had suffered in this house while I was gone. I filled the glass and hurried back. She reached for it slowly, fingers trembling too much to grip. I held it to her lips and supported her head. She took small, desperate sips, throat clicking with each swallow. The music thundered above us again, laughter erupting over some joke none of us downstairs would ever understand. I rubbed her forehead gently. "I'm here now, honey. You're safe." Footsteps pounded down the stairs. Laughter followed. Then the feet slowed near the landing. Michael appeared, leaning on the rail with a beer dangling from his hand. Samantha hovered behind him, phone held high, live streaming strangers for validation. He saw me. No shock, no guilt, just irritation. "Oh," he blinked lazily. "You're back early." The words hit harder than a punch. I stared up at him, unable to speak at first, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I couldn't believe what had already been said by his behavior. "She needed you," I said, voice low. She didn't say it was serious. She couldn't get up. Then she should have called louder. "I'm not her babysitter." Samantha scoffed. "You old people always make everything dramatic." Laura flinched, breath catching. I clenched my jaw. "Lower the music. Now." He rolled his eyes. "Dad, it's one night. Chill." "One night already almost killed your mother." His face shifted, not into guilt, but annoyance. "Look, we're having fun. We can't stop everything because she's uncomfortable." "She's your mother." "That doesn't mean I can drop my whole life." Every sentence was a red flag, not because it was loud, but because it lacked heart. I held Laura while Michael shrugged and walked away, Samantha laughing behind him. The music rose again, like a punishment. Laura turned her head slightly toward me. "I didn't want you to come home to this," she whispered. My voice broke without volume. "You're not the one who should feel ashamed." She closed her eyes as I placed another sip of water against her lips. The party raged overhead, clinking bottles, cheering, screaming lyrics, a soundtrack of cruelty. Each beat of music drove one truth deeper. My son didn't just ignore my mother. He abandoned her. As Laura drifted toward sleep, I stayed kneeling beside her. I didn't yell, didn't storm upstairs, didn't make declarations of war, because what I felt wasn't explosive. It was focused. A man doesn't lose dignity in one night. He loses it piece by piece until he decides to stop the bleeding. And tonight, holding a glass to my wife's lips while my son toasted shots upstairs, I felt the first stitch pull tight.
The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds unevenly, thin bands of gold across the bedroom carpet. I sat in the armchair near the window, watching Laura sleep. Her breathing was deep and steady, the kind of rest she hadn't had in weeks. For a moment, I let myself look at her the way I used to, not as someone fragile or recovering, but as the woman who carried our family through storms most people never saw. Being back in that chair took me somewhere else, to a time before knee surgeries, before scanners and medications and exhaustion, to the years when I thought love alone could hold a family together. People used to tell me I was a strict principal, but they misunderstood. Discipline wasn't shouting or punishment. Discipline was care, structure, the belief that consistency builds confidence. I spent 35 years learning how to guide young people, not to fear authority, but to trust it. I thought parenting would follow the same blueprint. When Michael was born, I promised myself I would be present. I wanted to be the father who didn't miss school events, who didn't choose work over childhood. Life, of course, had other plans. Laura got sick when Michael was still young. Stage 3 ovarian cancer. We were blindsided. Medical bills, long nights, experimental treatments. Insurance fought us every step of the way. I took extra shifts, night tutoring, test prep programs, administrative substitute duties. There were months when Laura barely saw me because I was always coming home as she was leaving for chemotherapy. And the miracle I still don't understand is this: Michael didn't resent us for it. He stepped up, without anyone asking him to. I remember one evening vividly. She'd lost her hair from treatment and was too exhausted to smile. Michael was maybe 12. He came home from school with a plastic grocery bag. "What is that?" I asked him. He emptied the bag on the table. Scented lotion, soft gloves, little snacks, a silk scarf. "I saw a video in class," he said, voice cracking nervously. "Chemo makes your skin hurt, so I wanted to help Mom feel better." That version of him, kind, thoughtful, protective, lived in my heart so deeply that it took me years to accept who he became later. Because for a long time, he was the boy who kissed Laura's cheek before school, who sat beside her in the hospital bed watching cartoons, who thanked nurses. We used to say we didn't raise a son, we raised a good man. Life rewarded hard work back then. We paid off debts, saved for college, built stability again. Michael got accepted to Indiana State. We gave him tuition because we wanted to.
When he got his first job at the architectural firm and wanted to buy a townhouse, we happily helped with the down payment. $42,000 wired without hesitation. I used to tell people, our son works harder than anyone. I believed it. His early years in adulthood proved it. He called every Sunday. He visited twice a month. He sent flowers to Laura on her birthday with handwritten notes. Stability seemed permanent, like we crossed the finish line. Then he met Samantha. The first time she came for dinner, she walked through the house like it was a competition she intended to win. Her compliments were calculated. Wow, this place hasn't changed in a while. Vintage. She said vintage, the same way people say outdated. During dinner, she live-streamed their plates, every angle, every bite, and when Laura quietly asked her to stop because it made her uncomfortable, Samantha rolled her eyes. "You guys are so strict. No wonder Michael moved out." The damage didn't happen all at once. It came slowly. Missed calls first, then rushed visits, then excuses like, "Work is crazy, traffic is bad, we're tired," then long stretches of nothing. Michael's tone changed too. He started measuring things. "How much did you spend on tuition again? How much equity do you guys have in the house? Did Mom put me on her life insurance yet?" Jokes disguised as curiosity, but jokes always reveal something. The day Laura had her first surgery, we trusted Michael to pick her up when she was discharged. I waited by the window holding her coat, hour after hour. Visiting hours ended, nurses frowned, the wheelchair sat in the lobby. He didn't answer. I pushed her through the rain myself, water soaking her blanket. Halfway to the car, she whispered, "He must have lost track of time." I whispered back, "Maybe." But inside, I felt something crack. When we got home, his text arrived. "LOL, my bad, got caught up. Dad's there, so she's fine." That was the first night I cried in years. Not loudly, but quietly, into my hands, in the kitchen, where no one could hear. Not because I was angry, but because disappointment sometimes hurts more than betrayal. Grace saw everything even before I admitted it. We were sitting on her porch months before the party. She watched me pace and finally said, "You keep trying to earn your own son." I stopped walking. She held my eyes. "You think if you're generous enough, patient enough, quiet enough, he'll come back." I didn't answer. She added softly, "Love should not require self-abandonment." I didn't hear her clearly until much later. A year before the confrontation, we sat down with attorney Richard Barnes to update our wills. He asked who we wanted as medical power of attorney. I said, "Michael." He paused. "Are you certain? You've said he hasn't been very reliable lately." I remember brushing it off. "He'll step up when it matters." Richard didn't argue. He just gave me a long look, the kind of look people give when they already know the ending. As the present pulled me back, I looked at the hallway from the bedroom chair. The hallway where I found Laura dehydrated days earlier. The memory drew a line through time. The basement filled with toys from when Michael was little. The dining table where we celebrated scholarships. The couch where he kissed Laura's forehead after treatment. The party upstairs where he ignored her cries. Same house, different son. Later that morning, Laura woke up and reached for my hand. "We have to tell the doctor I'm improving," she whispered, hopeful. "You are improving. You will keep improving." She rested her head on my shoulder. "I don't want our family to break," she whispered. I whispered back, It broke the night he decided strangers mattered more than us. She closed her eyes. Then maybe now we get to rebuild it differently. Her voice wasn't bitter. It was tired, but it was honest. I kissed her top of the head, not as reassurance, but as recognition. The son we raised wasn't gone forever, but the boy we remembered no longer lived here. And the man he became? He needed more than love. He needed consequences.
For the next 2 days after I came home early, our house felt like a pressure cooker, quiet on the surface, boiling underneath. The party mess was cleaned, the beer bottles gone, the sticky floors mopped, but the silence between us was heavier than any noise. Laura and I spoke softly, kindly, like people trying not to disturb cracked glass. Michael behaved as though nothing had happened. He wandered through the kitchen in the mornings, microwaving leftovers, scrolling on his phone, laughing at videos. He didn't look at Laura long enough to register her stiffness, didn't ask how she was feeling, didn't acknowledge my presence unless he needed something. And even then, it was with the tone of someone speaking to a hotel receptionist. On the third morning, the first blow finally landed. Michael stood leaning against the counter, drinking coffee from my mug, the one with the school principal's emblem on it. I was sitting at the table, eating toast I didn't taste. He broke the silence first. "So before you guys start guilt-tripping me," he said casually, "I did try to help that night." I looked at him long enough for him to feel the weight of the stare. "Explain that." He shrugged as if giving directions. "I offered her water. She refused. You know how she gets, dramatic." Laura, sitting with a blanket around her legs, looked up sharply. "Michael, that is not what happened." He shook his head. "Mom, you were drugged out on pain meds. You didn't know what you wanted." Her lip trembled. "I begged you." "You think you did, doesn't mean you did." I stood slowly. "She needed you." He rolled his eyes. "And I needed sleep. I had a long day." "She nearly fainted." "How is that my fault?" he retorted, voice rising. "I can't babysit a grown adult every second." He had no idea what he was admitting to. Or maybe he did and didn't care. Samantha floated into the kitchen, wearing Michael's hoodie, ponytail messy, eyeliner smudged. She laughed lightly when she saw the tension. "Oh my God, is this still about the water? Michael handled everything. He was like a hero." Laura looked down, shame settling in her shoulders. I turned to Samantha slowly. "Do you know how long she was asking for help?" She stretched her arms. "I don't keep track of every emotional moment older people have." The room turned cold. Michael checked his phone as if the conversation bored him. "You're blowing this out of proportion, Dad. It's not that deep." I saw Laura's hands shaking under the blanket. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't demand apologies. I said only, "Take responsibility." Michael laughed, loud and hard. "That isn't happening." The second confrontation wasn't loud. It was quiet enough to be violent. That same night, at 10 p.m., the speakers upstairs kicked on again. Laughter spilled down the staircase like thick smoke. People poured inside, bags of alcohol, boxes of pizza, vape pens shining under LED lights. I heard Samantha squeal, "Round two!" The music hit like a hammer, bass rattling the picture frames on the wall. Laura looked at me from the couch, fear in her eyes. "Honey, it's starting again." I marched to the stairs. "Michael?" "What?" "Your mother needs rest. Turn the music down." "It's just one night," he said with the ease of someone who never sacrificed anything. "This isn't about sleep." "Then what? You hate seeing me have fun?" "It's about responsibility." He snorted. "Your generation thinks suffering is a personality trait." I clenched my jaw. "Turn it down." "No, not happening." That was when I understood that this was no longer immaturity. This was entitlement, learned, practiced, comfortable. A week later, after Laura's checkup with the doctor, We hosted a small dinner, nothing extravagant, just family and a couple neighbors. Laura wanted to prove she was healing. She wore lipstick for the first time in months and kept brushing her hair behind her ear nervously. For the first hour, it almost felt like before. People chatting, laughing, talking about weekend plans. Then someone commented lovingly, "Laura, you've lost so much weight. Must be hard." Samantha didn't miss a beat. "Oh yeah, she can't even drink water without supervision." The room froze. Then laughter. Awkward, but loud enough to make Laura wince. Michael leaned back and grinning. She gets dramatic sometimes. Laura's hands shook so hard her fork clattered against the plate. Under the table, my fists tightened around my napkin until the fabric nearly tore. But I didn't interrupt the dinner. I didn't humiliate her further by making the moment bigger. I placed my hand over hers, gently, my wife, anchoring her in place. She squeezed back while staring into her lap. That was the night love first turned into obligation. The next day, my sister Grace stopped by unannounced. She sat in my study with a mug of coffee untouched, eyes tracking my face. "What happened last night?" she asked. I shook my head. Nothing worth talking about. She sighed. "I saw Michael mocking you behind your back while you were clearing plates." I flicked up. "He mimicked your voice. Everyone laughed." My stomach clenched, not because I didn't believe her, but because I already knew. "Henry," she whispered, "you have to wake up. You're waiting for the son he used to be. That son is gone." I swallowed. "He's struggling. He'll come around." She leaned in, eyes sharp with heartbreak. You're afraid that if you stop enabling him, he'll stop loving you. But listen to me carefully. He already stopped." I didn't answer. Sometimes silence is agreement we don't want to say out loud. The explosion came 2 weeks later. Laura needed her medication with food and water. I stepped out to answer a work call in the yard. When I came back in, she was gripping the wall, nearly collapsing. "Michael," she whispered, throat dry, "they're blocking the kitchen." I helped her to the couch and strode to the kitchen doorway. A wall of party guests were sprawled across the counters, loud, laughing, careless. A man in sunglasses inside the house at midnight. A woman dancing with her phone flashlight in one hand. A couple making out against the fridge. "Move," I ordered. They didn't. "Now!" They laughed. One woman smirked. "He's mad." Michael appeared from the back of the kitchen, face flush and sloppy. "Dad, chill. People are trying to have fun. Your mother needs water and medication." "So get it," he said, shrugging. "Why is this always a crisis?" "It's not a crisis. It's care." "Well, I don't care right now." Those 6 words were a clean cut, a scalpel. A minute later, they all learned I was done playing passive witness, because I found out where the disability checks went, the ones meant to help Laura recover. Gone, withdrawn, labeled party budget. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. "Someone had to fund the good times. You weren't here." That was the moment everything shifted for me. Not in anger, but in clarity. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't immaturity. This was moral decay. I walked away before I said anything emotional. I didn't scream. I didn't break things. I helped Laura take her medication with water from the bathroom sink and stayed beside her until she slept. Because my rage had evolved. It was no longer a fire. It was strategy. Michael wasn't the only one who could plan. But, unlike him, I didn't need the crowd to watch. I only needed the truth. And truth was already forming, sharp and inevitable.
The morning after the second party, the house finally went silent, but it wasn't peace. It was the silence that follows damage. Bottles gone, counters wiped, speakers unplugged, but the air still carried the scent of alcohol and disregard. The quiet pressed against my ribs like a weight. Laura sat propped up in bed, prodding at the blanket edge nervously. She looked stronger physically, but something in her eyes had dimmed, like she'd been forced to shrink to survive. I sat beside her. Honey, I need to understand everything. No protection, just truth. She nodded slowly and took a breath that trembled on the way in. I called him, she whispered. I called and called. I told him I was dizzy. I told him I couldn't breathe right. I said I needed water, and he said, her voice broke. He said I was doing it for attention, that I just wanted pity. Tears she'd been holding back for days finally spilled. I held her face gently, brushing them away with my thumb, not to stop them, but to let her know she didn't have to cry alone. He said it was embarrassing. He said I was ruining his night. Something dark and cold settled inside me. Not rage, clarity. The realization that my son wasn't merely careless, he was comfortable with neglect. Comfort requires repetition. Comfort requires choice. I helped her lie back down and kissed her forehead. I'm going to fix this, I said. I don't want revenge, she whispered. This isn't revenge, it's protection. I headed to the office that afternoon, not to cool down, to gather truth. The shared family computer rested beneath old, framed photos. Michael at 12 holding a soccer trophy. Michael graduating. The three of us in Hawaii. The child who loved us lived there. The man who exploited us lived upstairs. I started with the bank. Transactions rolled down the screen like confessions. $1,800, wholesale liquor supplier. $620, DJ equipment rental. $2,400, nightclub table service. $3,600, Diamond Lounge VIP table for 15 guests. Every charge billed to my card. Every authorization originated from Michael's phone. I printed them, page after page. The hum of the printer became rhythmic, mechanical, emotionless, as if the truth didn't care about feelings. Then I checked the credit card. Dozens of charges across multiple cities, some at 2 a.m., some in the middle of the day. The receipts hadn't been hidden, because Michael didn't believe consequences existed for him. Next, I opened the shared email account, originally meant for travel itineraries. At the top was a thread titled, Future LA Plans. I clicked. Samantha's message jumped out first. Once your parents die, we'll sell the house and move to LA. Michael replied, Don't worry, they're old, it won't take long. Samantha, if she dies in her sleep one night, it's not like we killed her. I froze, not from shock, but from recognition of who my son had chosen to become. I printed the thread. Hard evidence doesn't need anger. It only needs daylight. Then, because something in my gut told me to check, I clicked into the downloads folder. Screenshots, dozens. Dating app conversations, time-stamped during the relationship with Samantha. Living with old people till the house becomes mine. They think I love them. I love the inheritance. Easy money, easy life. I pressed print again. Pages slid out, stacking into a record of who he'd become. My hands didn't shake, not anymore, because pain had turned into purpose. I placed everything into a manila folder, careful and deliberate, like assembling a court case. I called Richard Barnes. He answered on the first ring. Henry, what happened? I need you at the house, and I need the law. He arrived 20 minutes later, still in his suit, tie loosened. I didn't offer coffee. I simply handed him the folder. He flipped through silently, first the bank statements, then the disability withdrawals, then the nightclub receipts. His jaw clenched once, then came the emails. His eyebrows jumped, then furrowed. Finally, the dating screenshots. He leaned back, exhaled slowly, and removed his glasses. Henry, this isn't irresponsibility. This is exploitation, and it's intentional. I nodded once. You have every legal right, he continued, to remove him from financial access, inheritance, and medical power, immediately. And the house? You own the property outright. He has zero legal claim. You can bar him from residence today. I paused. If I do all this, he will feel betrayed. Richard's voice was steady. He betrayed you first. The truth of that settled deep. Then another realization hit me, and I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Did I do this? Did I raise him to believe love had no limits? Richard shook his head. You raised him to believe love was unconditional. You never taught him that respect was too. I closed my eyes, not from shame, but from understanding. That night, after Richard left, Laura came downstairs and sat beside me quietly. She didn't ask for updates. She already knew what I had been doing. After a long moment, she whispered, "Is this going to destroy the family?" "No," I said softly. "The destruction already happened. This is how we stop pretending." Her hand slipped into mine, small, warm, fragile only in body. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I am too," I admitted. "But fear isn't the enemy. Silence is." She leaned her head on my shoulder, just like she did during her chemo treatments years ago. Times when we weren't fighting each other, but fighting for each other. After a few minutes, she asked, "What happens now?" "We show the truth," I said. "Not in anger, not in humiliation, just truth." She didn't speak again, but her breathing deepened, relief, not comfort, settling over her. Later that night, lying awake in the dark, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the quiet. Not absence, but anticipation. I thought about the boy rubbing lotion on his mother's hands during chemo, the teenager who hugged her after graduation, the young man who once called me his hero. And I thought about the man who drained her disability checks for alcohol, who mocked her pain, who built a future on our death. Both versions of him lived in my memory, but only one of them lived in my house now. And tomorrow, for the first time in years, truth would live here too. Not to punish him, not to take revenge, but to reclaim dignity. Because I finally understood. A father protects his child, but a husband protects his wife. And tomorrow, I would stop choosing the first at the cost of the second.
The day of the barbecue unfolded like a performance, but not my performance. Every detail was curated by Michael and Samantha to show the world they were thriving. It was their autobiographical masterpiece. Fancy outdoor furniture, neon drink coolers, Bluetooth speakers blasting top 40 hits, rows of matching plates for the aesthetic, and a hired photographer capturing candid moments that were anything but candid. People filled the backyard. Coworkers, old college friends, influencers, neighbors. Laughter rolled across the lawn like applause. The smell of grilled meat wafted through the air. Everyone was dressed like they were attending a magazine shoot, not a barbecue. Laura and I stood at the end of the driveway before walking in. She adjusted the sleeve of her dress nervously, her cane steadying her weight. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "No," I answered truthfully, "but we're done being quiet." We walked in together, slow, steady, dignified. I carried a sealed envelope under my arm. Not heavy, but it might as well have weighed 1,000 pounds. Samantha spotted us first. dressed in a sparkling romper and platform heels. She clapped dramatically and yelled to the crowd, "Everyone, the VIPs are here! Michael's incredible parents!" People cheered, and someone playfully whistled at Michael as he turned to greet us. He was holding a bottle of champagne, sunglasses perched on his forehead, smile wide and careless. "Mom, Dad, the stars of the show!" He hugged Laura with the enthusiasm of a man who had only ever performed affection. He hugged me, too, quick, superficial, with no weight of sincerity. I didn't hug back. He didn't notice. Music thumped while guests patted him on the back, praising him for being such a good son and stepping up during the surgery. Each compliment hit Laura like a physical blow, her eyes flickering down every time someone applauded her son for a kindness he never offered. A buffet table stood against the deck, and people lined up, laughing, posting their plates to social media. The afternoon light glowed golden, perfect, manipulated, deceptive. Then Michael raised his glass and tapped it with a fork. "Everyone, quiet! I want to make a toast!" Phones lifted, cameras flashed. The deck steps became his stage. He wrapped an arm around Laura's shoulders and announced, "I know everyone knows how crazy this year has been. Mom got sick, Dad traveled, but even with everything going on, we handled it because we're a strong family." Cheers, applause. "And when Dad was out of town, I stepped up. I took care of Mom, ran the house, kept the bills paid, made sure everything was handled, because that's who I am, dependable. I'm the kind of son who doesn't walk away from responsibility, right?" "Right," someone shouted. More applause. He soaked in the praise like sunlight. "That's what love is, giving everything for your family." That was the moment the room, the yard, the world shifted. I stepped forward, calm, quiet, steady. "Michael," I said, voice just loud enough to cut through the applause, "you didn't take care of her." The backyard fell into a silence so sudden it hurt the ears. Michael blinked, confused. Then he laughed nervously. "Dad, come on, we're toasting." "You abandoned her," I said. A hush rippled through the crowd. Phones stopped filming, then pointed toward us again, hungry for drama. Michael forced a grin. "He's kidding. You guys know my dad. Dramatic storyteller." He clinked his glass with mine, pretending to pull me into the joke. I didn't raise mine. "She begged you for water," I continued, "and you ignored her." Laughter died immediately. Michael's jaw twitched. "Dad, not here. Not this." "You begged you for water," I repeated, "and you told her she was embarrassing." Guests shifted uncomfortably. Samantha swallowed hard. Laura trembled behind me. "Stop," he hissed. "This isn't the place." "It wasn't the place for her to be crying on the couch dehydrated while you sang karaoke upstairs, but it happened." Someone covered their mouth. Someone else whispered. Samantha jumped in, voice dripping arrogance. "You're twisting things. She refused water. She was emotional. We tried to help. She didn't want—" I took my phone from my pocket and pressed play. Laura's voice, frail, shaking, filled the speakers. "Michael, honey, please, I need water. I'm dizzy. Please, I'm begging you." Then laughter, shouting, music blasting. Michael's voice slurred. "Stop trying to get attention, Mom. God, you ruin everything." People froze. Even the music from the speaker seemed softer now. One woman beside the grill whispered, "Oh my God." Samantha's face paled. You can't, this is taken out of context." I turned toward her. "The context is neglect." Michael stepped forward, shaking with anger. "You had no right to record us." I looked him in the eye. "The baby monitor recorded you. You kicked it on accidentally." A man in the crowd muttered, "Jesus Christ." But Michael wasn't done lying. "She wanted attention. She always does. You know how she gets," he shouted, desperate for validation from his audience. I pulled out the envelope and slid the stack of documents onto the patio table. Bank statements, credit card charges, disability withdrawals, liquor invoices, VIP nightclub receipts. All printed, all time-stamped. I didn't shout, I didn't accuse. I simply handed the financial truth to daylight. Mom's disability checks were used to buy liquor, and speakers, and nightclub tables, and casino tokens. Someone gasped. Someone dropped a drink. Laura squeezed my hand hard. Michael's voice cracked. I don't understand. I was stressed. I needed to blow off steam. I was planning to pay it back. No, I said softly. You were planning on us dying before the bill came due. His face collapsed. I pulled out the final set of papers, emails and dating app messages. I didn't read them aloud. I didn't need to. The crowd gasped as they scanned. Once your parents die, we'll sell the house and move to LA. Don't worry, they're old. It won't take long. If she dies in her sleep, it's not like we killed her. I'm milking the old couple until I get the house. Samantha's voice cracked high with panic. Michael, why didn't you delete those? You sent them, he turned on her. And you replied, she shoved him. Their mask of glamour shattered. Cameras dropped, makeup streaked, yelling overlapping. I didn't raise my voice once. I just waited for the noise to settle. And when it did, I spoke slowly, not to destroy him, but to finish the truth. She nearly died, and you were pouring shots. Tears ran down Laura's cheeks, but this time they weren't the tears of humiliation. They were the tears of someone being defended. Michael collapsed into a sobbing heap. Dad, please, I messed up. I can fix it. I'll change. I'll take care of her. I'll be good. Don't do this. I shook my head gently. You had that chance. You chose strangers over your mother. He reached for me, but I stepped back. I met with attorney Richard Barnes. Legal documents are finalized. You've been removed from the will. The house deed belongs to your mother alone. You have no access to our finances, medical decisions, or property. Samantha stormed toward the exit, screaming, I'm not staying with someone who's broke. Michael lunged after her, grabbing her wrist. She jerked away and pushed him hard. He fell backward into the grass. Nobody followed her. Michael crawled forward, gripping my ankles. Dad, please, I'll disappear for a month. I'll get therapy. Just undo it. Don't leave me with nothing. I didn't move. You earned nothing, I said gently, and now you own nothing. He screamed, gripping fistfuls of grass, punching the ground, not from anger, but from losing the life he'd built on lies. He kept wailing, Dad, please, until his voice went raw. I didn't yell. I didn't scold. I helped Laura stand, placed her hand in mine, and walked her toward the exit. Guests moved aside, eyes wide, silent, not looking at us, but at Michael, collapsed and sobbing in the dirt. Not destroyed by us, destroyed by truth. At the gate, Laura looked up at me through tears. Are we terrible parents? No, honey, I whispered. We finally became good ones. And we walked away, slowly, shoulder to shoulder, while behind us the music played on. But nobody was dancing anymore.
Michael moved out the following morning, though moved out isn't really the right phrase. He stumbled out, eyes swollen from crying, hair disheveled, clothes shoved carelessly into garbage bags. He didn't meet my eyes, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't bear what he'd see reflected back. Samantha didn't help him pack. She arrived only long enough to hurl the last of his shirts from the car window and shout, "Good luck without Daddy's money," before speeding away. He called her for hours afterward. I could hear his phone ringing through the window, but she never picked up. I watched from inside the house, not the way someone watches a tragedy unfold, but the way someone witnesses the natural consequences of their own actions. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't celebrating. I was grieving a son I lost long before he packed those bags. When he finally drove away, tires squealing down the street,
Laura stood beside me, holding her blanket tight around her shoulders. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Love had not gone anywhere, but trust had been buried. The silence that followed wasn't immediate relief. It was detox. For the first week, the house felt hollow, every room holding memory, like stored echoes. Parties, arguments, slammed doors, music shaking the ceiling. Laura woke up twice thinking she heard him yelling from upstairs. I woke up every morning expecting the smell of alcohol from late-night parties. But little by little, our bodies unlearned chaos. On the 9th day, Laura woke up early and said, "I think I want to go to physical therapy today." It was the first time she'd sounded hopeful in months. We walked into the clinic together. The first session was brutal. Stretching, resistance bands, balance exercises. She gripped my arm more than once, tears slipping down her cheeks from pain, but she never quit. I sat on the bench, close enough for her to reach if she needed, but far enough that she didn't feel pitied. Afterwards, in the car, she turned to me. "It feels good to be cared for, without earning it," she whispered. My throat tightened. "Honey, you never needed to earn care." She put her hand over mine on the gear shift, a simple gesture, but full of everything we had reclaimed. In the weeks that followed, there were attempts from Michael. The first call was rage. "You ruined my life. Everyone thinks I'm a monster because of you." I held the phone. "Michael, I didn't ruin your life. You built your life on the assumption we would never protect ourselves." He cursed and hung up. 3 days later, he showed up crying, kneeling on the porch. "Dad, I'll change. I'll get therapy. Just give me access to my accounts again. I can't do this without you." I stood behind the locked screen door. "Your mother couldn't do it without you either." He pounded the door frame, sobbed, then left again. A week later came desperation, bargaining. "Let me move back for 3 months. I'll pay rent. You won't even know I'm here, I swear." "You weren't supposed to be invisible. You were supposed to be family." He stared at me, stunned, because entitlement doesn't know how to respond to boundaries. He didn't return after that. Not physically. But texts arrived, missed calls, voicemails, most blaming the world, some apologizing, one threatening to leave the country, another claiming he had changed. Every message was different in wording, but identical in meaning. He wasn't ready to take responsibility. I responded only once when Laura asked if I ever planned to answer him. My reply to him was short. Come back when responsibility means more than excuses. He never answered, and for the first time, I didn't wait. Meanwhile, life healed. Attorney Richard Barnes returned a month later with the finalized documents. House deed transferred fully to Laura, financial accounts locked, medical authority reassigned. When he handed the folder to me, he didn't say congratulations. He said something kinder. You protected your family. After he left, Laura came downstairs and found me sitting with the papers. I expected her to cry, to mourn. Instead, she smiled very softly, ran her fingertips over the pages like they were a shield. She said, "We're safe now." Then came the home. Repairing it became therapy neither of us expected. We replaced the dead light bulbs with bright, warm ones. We pulled down the sticky, stained carpet and installed cedar planks we could feel under our feet. We repainted the walls, no longer dull beige, but soft golds and greens, colors that felt alive. We replaced the liquor-dented coffee table with a wooden one Laura chose from an antique shop. The greatest change wasn't decor. It was space. Space without fear of humiliation. Space without neglect. Space without wondering whether love would be rewarded or weaponized. Sometimes Laura and I worked side by side quietly. Sometimes we played old 80s music and laughed at each other's bad singing. Sometimes we stopped mid-project just to sit on the floor and drink tea, appreciating progress that wasn't loud or performative, progress that stayed. And then one afternoon, something happened that told me healing wasn't just possible, it had arrived. It was raining, steady, gentle, rhythmic. The smell of wet earth drifted through the cracked window. I sat on the living room couch, hands interlaced over my stomach, listening to the rain tick softly against the roof, not waiting for shouting, not bracing for footsteps, just living. For the first time in months, I wasn't anticipating pain. Laura came down the stairs in thick socks, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She handed one to me, then curled up on the other end of the couch, legs tucked under her blanket. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. In the quiet, she reached out with her foot until it touched my leg lightly, just enough to say, "I'm here." I closed my eyes. Silence had returned to our home. Not empty, not lonely, peaceful. The absence of chaos isn't emptiness, it's protection. And for the first time, I understood something I should have known long ago. Loving someone does not mean letting them destroy you.
9 months passed. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily, the way wounds close when you stop reopening them. Life didn't rush to replace what was lost. It simply filled empty spaces with new meaning. Laura and I developed routines that didn't feel like survival anymore. They felt like living. Every Wednesday morning, we drove to the rehabilitation center downtown. It started with Laura wanting to give back, but it became something we both needed. She helped new patients, guiding them through exercises, showing them stretches, encouraging them when their legs trembled the way hers once had. I handled sign-ins, paperwork, questions from families. I brewed coffee for the waiting room, refilled clipboards, and learned everyone's name. One patient, a nervous young woman on her first day, whispered to Laura, "How do you know it gets better?" Laura touched her hand gently and said, "Because I didn't believe that once, and someone held on for me until I could." Later in the car, she looked over at me with soft eyes full of memory. She didn't need to say anything. Our marriage didn't just survive what happened, it shifted into something deeper. A partnership no longer filled with the fear of losing someone, but with the comfort of being chosen. Every single day. Michael contacts me occasionally, not often, and always with the same emotional script. Sometimes he texts angrily. "You ruined my reputation. You turned everyone against me." Sometimes apologetically. "I'm trying to change. Why won't you believe me?" Sometimes bargaining. "I just need the house for collateral. I'll pay you back." Sometimes resentful. "Samantha got another guy. You happy now?" Sometimes hopeless. "If I disappear forever, is that what you want?" The only thing consistent is that someone else is always to blame. Me, his mother, Samantha, stress, expectations, the world. Responsibility never appears in his messages. I answered him only once. I waited until I could speak without anger, without fear, without longing for the son he once was. My message was simple. Come back when responsibility means more than excuses. He never replied. And for the first time in my life, I didn't wait for a reply. Our home, the same home where the worst moments happened, has become warm again. Not flawless, not storybook, but ours. The walls display new pictures, hikes Laura and I take together, the little garden we planted, small dinners with Grace and Richard, laughter that doesn't feel forced. The house feels lived in, not occupied. Healing didn't erase pain, it built something around it. One morning, early spring, one of those mornings where the world is still deciding whether it wants to be warm, I slipped outside quietly, not wanting to wake Laura. The grass was covered in dew, chilly against my slippers. The air smelled like wet soil and pine. The skies stretched pink and pale blue across the horizon. I picked up the watering can and tended to the small patch of flowers along the fence, the ones Laura and I planted when we decided the house deserved life again. I didn't think about Michael at first. I didn't think about the past, or the confrontation, or the evidence folder, or the screams in the backyard. I didn't think about failure or regret. I just watered the garden. Footsteps behind me, soft. Laura stepped onto the porch wrapped in a shawl, hair messy from sleep. She leaned against the railing and smiled. "Morning," she whispered. I looked at her, at the woman who survived illness, neglect, and heartbreak, and still had kindness to give, and I felt something steady inside me settle. We had saved each other. She sat down slowly on the porch bench, and I walked over, placing the watering can aside. She reached for my hand and squeezed it once. After a moment, she asked quietly, "Do you ever think he'll come back the right way?" I exhaled through my nose. "Maybe, but he has to choose the right way. We can't do that part for him." She nodded and rested her head against my arm. And I realized what peace really meant. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of permission for pain to keep entering. For so many years, I thought forgiveness meant staying, enduring, waiting until the person who hurt you decided to be better. But life, especially these last 9 months, taught me the truth. I used to think forgiveness meant staying. Now I know forgiveness sometimes means walking away and never letting someone hurt you again. Laura squeezed my hand softly, as if she heard the thought. The sun broke fully above the horizon then, light spreading across our yard, across the garden, across her face. She looked at me with quiet certainty. No fear, no instability, just presence. We didn't need to celebrate. We didn't need dramatic happiness. That morning didn't need applause or spectacle. It was victory. Gentle, earned, lived. And as we sat there side by side in silence, I understood something that would stay with me for the rest of my life.